I'm Ben Pollard from the Lewis and Clark State Historic Site. I want to talk to you today a little bit about one of the folks working here at Camp River Dubois over the winter from January of 1804 to May of 1804 that doesn't always get a lot of recognition for her contributions to the expedition. And that's the washerwoman right here. We call her the washerwoman because unfortunately Captain Clark never actually gave us her name. All he did when writing about her was mention a few times in the journal that she had come to offer her services and that he had set some of the men to building a small hut for her to work from. He wrote on January 1st of 1804, "A woman come forward wishing to wash and do such things as may be necessary for the detachment." So she's doing all the laundry here, probably mending the clothes for the soldiers as well. Unfortunately, Clark never gave us her name, but I'll get to that in just a second. Now, the washerwoman is a pretty common role at all the Army installations at the time. These camp followers are people often married to someone in camp that are working to help cook, to mend clothes, to do other services around the camp. It's a good way for them to get paid and sustain themselves. It's a great way for the Army to be able to make sure that everything is running correctly. And so it's not uncommon for this woman to come and offer her services. In fact, it's so common that in his book, Tailor Made War, Robert Moore writes that at Fort Wayne in Indiana, that the washerwoman was guaranteed a pay for her services, 25 cents per dozen pieces if she was providing the soap, only 14 cents per dozen if the men were supplying the soap. So it's not great pay when you think about it, 25 cents per load of laundry. But you have to keep in mind that these soldiers are only making about $5 a month. So that should help put kind of the context of how much that money is worth. And this is for a very tough job. The washerwoman would have to boil her own water and scrub it with this harsh lye soap that's made out of wood ash and animal fat. It's really rough on the hands. It's an all-day job to get these loads of laundry done. It's not just throwing it into the washer, turning the knob, coming back and moving it to the dryer. On top of that, she'd have to mend the clothes of these soldiers who are working hard here in camp. I'm sure they've got a lot of weird stains and tears that she would have to address. Her services in camp are not really detailed much more after Clark talks about her originally, but we think that she was here for the rest of that period here in camp doing those laundry services. She did have a hut here on the site, and actually its construction was part of a punishment that Captain Clark had for some of the men. They'd gotten in a drunken fight the night before, and Clark sets them to work so that the person they were at each other's throats with the night before, they now had to team up with to build this hut for the washerwoman just outside the camp. So kind of a creative punishment on Clark's part. Now on to the identity of the washerwoman. Like I said, we can't say with 100% certainty who it was because Clark didn't give us her name. But there are a few candidates. One of them is the widow Meacham. There was a local historian who suggested that one of the Meacham sisters, who was widowed, had moved in and taken over this job for a few months as a way to support herself. We don't think that's very likely because Lippincott, the historian, didn't give us a lot of information to suggest that this is who it is. A slightly better candidate would be Mrs. Kane. Clark does write about settling a debt for 12.5 cents with a Mrs. Kane here in camp. And he does mention her coming to camp at different times, but often it's in the context of coming with other Kanes. He talks about plural Kanes. So we're imagining that's probably her husband or her children coming along as well. Probably not the kind of person that's going to be doing the washing here in camp, because traditionally that washerwoman camp follower job is someone married in camp or a widow kind of living in the area trying to provide for themselves. What Mike Stout, our site interpreter here for a number of years, in his research suggests, and probably the most likely candidate for this washerwoman, was published most recently in We Proceeded On, the November 2019 edition. He got this published talking about who he thinks the identity of the washerwoman is, and I'll break that down for you very quickly. This has to do with John Ordway's excerpt from his journal upon their return. Lewis and Clark had been gone for 2 years, 4 months, 10 days. They're itching to get back to St. Louis, show they're not dead, finally sleep in a regular bed, and they're hurrying home, but they do stop to see what happened at Camp River Dubois. And let me read that to you. Tuesday, 23rd of September, 1806. A wet, disagreeable morning. We set out after breakfast and proceeded on. Soon arrived at the mouth of the Missouri, entered the Mississippi River, and landed at River Dubois, where we wintered in 1804. Here we found a widow woman who we left here, and has a plantation under tolerable good way since we have been on the expedition. We delayed a short time, and about 12 o'clock we arrived in sight of St. Louis. So they were only here very briefly for a few hours, checking in on their old stomping grounds. But Ordway is very interesting in that he calls her the widow woman that they'd left here. So he seems very familiar with her. Widows are often the people that take on these camp follower jobs. And so that gives us some more clues about this woman here in camp. What we also know is that she's moved into the buildings. She's running her own plantation, as Ordway calls it, farm, as everyone else around here would call it, out of the camp. It's under a tolerable good way, so a decent farm. And so that intrigued our site interpreter, Mike Stout, and he actually went to the land claims from 1807, when this area of Illinois was opening up for farmers to make claims on the land. And what he did is he looked through all these claims around the area where Camp River Dubois was located. And what he was able to find is one woman who puts her name down for claims of that area where Camp River Dubois probably was. It's very uncommon for women to make these claims. Usually it's the husband making these claims. So usually it's the widows who would make these claims otherwise. And I bring that up because John Ordway mentioned this widow woman here in camp. And there is this woman, a Jane MacMurray, in the 1807 land claims, claiming the area where Camp River Dubois was. So just 1 year, not even a full year after Ordway had written about this widow woman in their camp. If that's the case, that means that Jane is probably our washerwoman. Jane MacMurray, a woman who came in, offered her services, and made the best of an entire camp being abandoned to turn into her own farm. That's our best guess. We'll never know for sure, but I think our strongest case is that Jane MacMurray is our washerwoman. I want to thank you for watching today. Tune in for more videos on this page, and check out our Facebook page as well. Thanks.